Understanding content and language objectives. How to differentiate and construct them. Writing content and language objectives falls under SIOP component number 1, lesson preparation. A content objective identifies what students should know and be able to do at the end of the lesson and leads to assessment. It is linked to engaging activities and to the learning outcomes. A language objective is a process-oriented statement, an action verb, of how students will use English with the content. Content objectives identify content standards for the lesson. They answer the question, what will the student learn during the lesson? This must be observable and measurable. Verbs for content objectives include verbs that show knowledge, comprehension, application, synthesis, and evaluation. Let's use a 6th grade Indiana social studies standard, for example. Standard 6.1.11, compare and contrast Spanish, Portuguese, French, and British colonies in the Americas. Standard 6.1.11, compare and contrast Spanish, Portuguese, French, and British colonies in the Americas, is pretty complex and can't fully be accomplished in one class period. So let's simplify this, and for this lesson, let's focus on comparing Spanish and Portuguese colonies to make this standard more manageable. Our content objective: students will compare and contrast Spanish and Portuguese colonies in the Americas. Before I move on, I need to check. Have I identified the content standard? Have I identified what the student will learn during the lesson? Is it observable and measurable? Is the language student-friendly? Language objectives answer the questions, how will students learn or demonstrate mastery? What language domains will students use to do so? This is called identifying the language function. Verbs for language objectives are verbs that indicate listening, speaking, reading, writing, and vocabulary development. Before writing language objectives, determine which domains students will use to show mastery. Students will list similarities and differences between colonies and then use paragraph frames to write a constructed response answer. Students will take turns reading and listening to answers with a partner. Before finalizing your language objectives, ask yourself, have I identified which language domains and functions students will use to show mastery of content? This is a great infographic about content and language objectives from johnmistison.net. Thank you for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions.